students, my name is Kennedy and I'm with the College Success Foundation. Today, we're going to be talking about the FAFSA. This video is part of a series, and the first video talks about what the FAFSA is and why to fill it out. So if you haven't watched that one, be sure to check it out. The FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Think of the FAFSA as the first step in your journey to fund your education after high school. The FAFSA form offers access to federal and state aid for grants, loans, and work-study funds. Let's do a quick run-through of what the process will look like. You'll determine who your contributors are. You'll gather your documents and other important information you and your contributors may need. You and your contributors will create account logins, which we call an FSA ID. You and your contributors will fill out your respective portions of the FAFSA form. The FAFSA will get sent to your prospective colleges. Then, the colleges will process your application and send you an award letter based on your Student Aid Index, or SAI. Whew, that is a lot of information, but please, don't worry, we'll help you every step of the way. So, let's get into it. First, you'll need to determine if you are a dependent or an independent student in the eyes of the FAFSA. Generally, if you're under 24, you'll likely be a dependent student. This means you'll report your own information, and your biological or adoptive parents must be contributors on your FAFSA form. A dependent student is assumed to have the support of parents, so the parents' information must be assessed along with the student's information to get a full picture of the family's financial resources. Independent students, on the other hand, only need to provide their own information. And if you're a student who's married, your spouse's information would be included too. To be considered for independent status, you'll need to qualify for one of the following personal circumstances: be at least 24 years old, have dependents that you financially support, be married, be a graduate or professional student, a U.S. veteran, in active duty military service other than training purposes, an emancipated minor, a recently homeless youth or self-supporting and at risk for homelessness, or someone who has been in foster care, been an orphan, or a dependent or ward of the court for any period of time after the age of 13. In the application, there will be questions related to these personal circumstances to determine your dependency status. If you think you may qualify as an independent student, but you're not sure, just be sure to ask a trusted adult. So again, if you're an independent student, you'll only need to report your own information and your spouse's if applicable. And for dependent students, you'll be reporting you and your contributors' information. Now, we understand that families are very complex, so let's take a look at who would be considered your contributor for your application. The term contributor refers to someone who is required to fill out a section of your FAFSA application. All contributors must provide consent and approval for their federal tax information to be transferred directly from the IRS into the FAFSA form, along with an electronic signature to seal the deal. Depending on your circumstances, you may or may not require contributors on your FAFSA form. Contributors can be you, the student, your spouse, if you, the student, are married, biological or adoptive parents, your parent's spouse, or your step-parent. The FAFSA form does not consider legal guardians, non-adoptive grandparents, foster parents, or other family members like aunts, uncles, or siblings to be contributors. If your biological or adoptive parents are married to each other, then both of your parents' information must be included on the FAFSA. If your married parents file taxes jointly, then only one parent needs to create an FSA ID and be your contributor on your form. If your biological or adoptive parents aren't married to each other, then we need to ask, do they live together? If yes, each parent will need to create an FSA ID to be a contributor. If your parents aren't married and are not living together, then we need to ask, did one parent provide more financial support than the other over the past 12 months? If yes, then we call them Parent A, and Parent A, who provided more financial support, will be considered your only contributor and will need to create an FSA ID. Your other parent, Parent B, would not need to be a contributor, and we do not need their tax information for the FAFSA application. If no, both parents equally contributed financially, then the parent who has the greater income and assets will be considered the contributor and will need an FSA ID. Again, we'll call them Parent A. If parent A is married or remarried, then your step-parent's information will also be needed. But if your parent A and step-parent filed taxes jointly, then the step-parent won't need to be listed as a contributor and they won't need an FSA ID. Just because your family member is considered a contributor, it does not mean that they have an obligation to pay for your education. But it does mean that their income information will be used on your FAFSA form. This is the information that's used to determine the need-based aid that you qualify for. This information is also used to determine if you qualify for any grants, which is free money for school that you don't have to pay back. You'll need the following information or documents as you fill out the FAFSA form. You'll need the student's social security number. You'll need your contributor's social security numbers if they have one. And if you're a dependent student, you'll need tax returns for reference from 2 years prior, records of child support received, current balances of cash, savings, and checking accounts, and net worth of investments, businesses, and farms. One thing that you don't need for the FAFSA form is money. The FAFSA form is free, so if a website asks you to pay to fill it out, you're not dealing with an official FAFSA site. Remember, this is a government application, so it's on a .gov website. An FSA ID, also referred to as a studentaid.gov account, is your username and password for the FAFSA. This is how you'll log into the FAFSA website. Creating your FSA ID will take about 10 to 15 minutes. First, you'll go to fafsa.gov and click on Start New Form. You'll then click on Create an Account. Every contributor will need to have their own FSA ID. So that means the student needs an FSA ID, and if you're a dependent student, the other contributor on your application will also need an FSA ID. Here's the information that you'll need to do so. Your full legal name, date of birth, social security number if applicable for the parent, email address. Please do not use your high school issued email address, use a personal one, mobile phone number, home address, a unique username and password which you'll create. And remember, this is a federal application, so please triple check that your information is correct and matches your legal documents. Once you fill in your contact information, you'll create and answer challenge questions, and then you'll need to verify your phone number and email by codes they'll send you. So, be sure to have access to your cell phone and email. Also, it's not required for the parent to have a social security number. If the parent doesn't have an SSN, click the box that says, I do not have a social security number. For contributors without a social security number, at the end of the account creation process, you may be prompted to answer identity verification questions, or you may need to fill out an affidavit instead. Contributors without an SSN should check their inbox for an email from Federal Student Aid with next steps you can follow to verify your identity. If your parent already has an FSA ID, maybe from when they went to college or filled out the FAFSA for an older sibling, they'll need to use the same one that was previously created. Only one FSA ID can be created per social security number. If it's been years and you don't remember your username, here's what to do. Start with trying to create an account. You'll be alerted if there already is an account using the same social security number. If it alerts you that your SSN is already connected to an FSA ID, then just try logging in. If you previously verified your email address or mobile phone number during your FSA ID account creation, you can just enter in your email or phone number instead of a username. Now, if that doesn't work and you can't remember your password, click on Forgot Password and follow the prompts. You'll use your FSA ID every year you go to college and fill out the FAFSA, so be sure to keep that password somewhere extra safe. I'd recommend putting it in your phone notes and label that note FAFSA or financial aid stuff so that you can come back to it the following year. While the FAFSA application opens on a specific date, typically October 1st of every year, you can create your FSA ID at any time. You'll need to create it at least 3 days prior to filling out the FAFSA application. And this is just because Federal Student Aid needs to talk with the Social Security Administration to confirm that what you put in the FSA ID is true. And it can take up to a few days to verify your identity. Keep your eye out for an email that lets you know that your identity has been verified and you're all good to go. So, once you have your FSA ID created and your identity verified, you can then start the FAFSA application. If you're a dependent student, there'll be both a student section and a parent section. You can only fill out the student section when logging in with the student's FSA ID, and you can only fill out the parent section when logging in with the parent's FSA ID. It doesn't matter who completes their section first. Either way, they'll get linked to each other. It will ask for personal information of the other contributor and will send an email inviting the other person to get started on their section. Follow that link in the email to finish your section of the form. When you go to the FAFSA.gov, you'll see that the FAFSA is open for 2 different school years. You'll want to fill out the FAFSA for the school year that you'll be attending college. So, for example, if you're a high school senior graduating class of 2025 and you're planning to go to college in the fall of 2025, then you'll be applying for the 2025-2026 FAFSA. You'll want to click on Start New Form and log in with your FSA ID and follow the prompts to complete your 2-step verification. You'll then be prompted to select if you're the student or the parent. For this video, we're going to walk through the application as if we're filling out the student section first and then inviting the parent. So go ahead and click on Student. First, it will guide you through understanding the FAFSA form videos to teach you the basics of what is financial aid and the FAFSA process. Once you're finished, click on Start FAFSA Form. On the top right-hand corner, there's a Save button. If you can't finish the application all in one sitting, be sure to save your form to come back to it. The application will be saved with your information for only 45 days. So if there's no activity in your FAFSA application, after those 45 days, your application will be cleared and deleted, and you will need to start a new application. The application will start with asking your state of legal residence and the date when you became a legal resident of your state. So if you were born in that state, then you just put the date with the month and the year that you were born. It will then ask you to provide consent and approval for FAFSA to obtain your tax return information automatically from the IRS. If you do not provide consent and approval, you will not be eligible for federal student aid and you cannot move forward with the application. For any contributor who may not have filed taxes, it's okay that you haven't filed them, but you'll still need to provide consent and approval. Once you've provided your consent, it will then take you into the main portion of the application, which has 5 main sections: demographics, financials, colleges, and the review and signature page. The personal circumstances section will ask you questions about your marital status, what your college grade level will be in the school year you're applying for. So even if you've attended Running Start or have earned college credits in high school, you'll want to put first year freshman. It will ask if you've had your first bachelor's degree, which is a 4-year college degree. And if you're a high school student, you'll say no. It will then ask questions to determine if you're a dependent or independent student. And if you don't meet any of the listed personal circumstances and you're under the age of 24, you'll be considered a dependent student. And for dependent students, it will then ask for your contributor's personal information. Be sure to triple check that you've entered the contributor information accurately and it matches exactly what your contributor put when creating their FSA ID. It must be a 100% match of information for the invitation to be sent to your contributor. The student demographics section will ask questions about you and your parents. These questions will include gender identity, race and ethnicity, citizenship status, parent education status. If your parent was killed in the line of duty, it'll ask what will your high school completion status be at the beginning of the school year that you're applying for. So for example, if you're graduating in the spring of 2025 and you're applying for the 2025-2026 school year, you'll put high school diploma. Then it will ask you to put what high school you'll be graduating from. These questions will include information about your finances. Because you provided consent that the FAFSA can automatically pull your federal tax information from the IRS website, you won't see any of your tax information and numbers in the application, but they will be pulling your tax information from 2 years ago. For example, if you're filling out the 2025-2026 school year application, they'll be pulling tax information from 2023. The financial questions will include federal benefits received, if you or anyone in your family have received benefits from any of the listed federal programs. It will also ask about your assets. This question is referring to the student's current assets, meaning as of today. So if the answer is 0 or the question does not apply, just go ahead and enter 0. In the colleges section, this is where you can search for and select colleges and career schools you're considering attending. Adding the school means that the college will automatically receive an electronic copy of your FAFSA application after you and your contributor both have submitted your sections. You'll need to add at least one college, but you can add up to 20. You also don't have to have already applied or be accepted yet. This is just a list of colleges you're considering attending. You can search the colleges by school name, or you can search by school code, which is typically listed on the college's financial aid websites. Generally, I find it easier for students to just search the college by name. Once you've added your colleges, you'll see a list of all of them, and then you'll click Continue to move on to the last part of your application. You are on the final part of your application. There will be a long summary of all the information you just provided to the FAFSA. Go ahead and review the information and scroll all the way down and click on Continue. You'll then get to sign and submit the FAFSA form. This is where you'll be providing your electronic signature, and you'll click that you agree to the terms outlined above. Then just sign and submit. Congratulations! You've now completed your section of the FAFSA application. Here you'll see the FAFSA complete confirmation page and next steps. Now that the student section is complete, your contributor will now receive an invitation to fill out their section of the application. An email will be sent to them, but the invitation can also be found in their FAFSA account when they go ahead and log in. You can now log in with the other contributor's FSA ID. Once clicking on Accept Invitation, the contributor will go through similar steps as the student. This includes the onboarding processes, reviewing parent identity information, and providing consent for the parent's federal tax information to be transferred directly into the FAFSA form. Then you'll be in the main part of the application, and you'll see that the contributor section has 3 main parts: demographics, financials, and signature. In the contributor's demographics section, it will ask questions such as current marital status, date of legal residency, family size, and even the number of people in the parent's family that will be attending college in the same year. In the financial section, it'll ask you questions about benefits received from federal programs, the contributor's tax filing status, annual child support received, and current assets. Just note that the question is referring to current assets, meaning as of today, and you'll answer depending on your marital status. If you are married, remarried, or unmarried and both legal parents are living together, enter the combined amounts held by the parent and their spouse. If the answer is 0 or the question doesn't apply, just go ahead and answer 0. If you file taxes jointly, then the other spouse doesn't need to create an FSA ID or be a contributor. Side note, even if you are married and file taxes jointly, it will still have a section asking for your spouse's contact information. It'll ask for their full legal name, social security number if applicable, date of birth, and email address. If the spouse doesn't have an SSN, it'll ask for their address. Just make sure to put the address exactly how it's listed on your taxes. For example, if the taxes list road but abbreviated as RD period, then you'll want to type in the abbreviation. If the IRS is unable to retrieve your financial information, you may need to manually enter your financial information into the application. This may be applicable to contributors without a social security number as well. Now you are on the final part of the FAFSA form. There will be a summary of the information that you just entered. Just review all the information and scroll all the way down to the bottom and click on Continue. You'll then get to sign and submit the FAFSA form, and this is where you'll be providing that electronic signature. You'll click that you agree to the terms outlined above, and then click on Sign and Submit. And congratulations again! You've now just completed the contributor section of the FAFSA form. You'll see a FAFSA complete confirmation page and next steps. And you've now completed both contributor sections for the student and the parent. Great work! Let's now talk about what happens now that you've submitted. You'll receive a confirmation email after your FAFSA form is submitted, and as long as there are no errors, you'll see your estimated eligibility for a federal Pell Grant and your estimated Student Aid Index, or SAI, in the email. These are the only estimates until your FAFSA has been processed by federal student aid, which can take about 1 to 3 days. The Student Aid Index, or SAI, is an index number calculated using your FAFSA information to determine eligibility for need-based aid. The SAI is the number that your school will use to decide how much financial aid they will offer you. Once the FAFSA is processed, you'll then be able to review your FAFSA submission summary by logging back into the Federal Student Aid website with your FSA ID. The FAFSA submission summary has 4 tabs. Eligibility overview. This will include the estimates for your federal student aid, the federal Pell Grant, federal direct loans, and federal work study, and you'll see your SAI. The second is your FAFSA form answers. This will have a summary of all the information you put on your FAFSA. If you see incorrect information, this is where you can make a correction by clicking the Make a Correction button at the top of this tab. There's also the school information. This is where you can see the list of colleges you sent your FAFSA to. If you want to add more colleges, you can do so here. And then Next Steps. This tab will include your next steps and what to expect. This information is then shared with the colleges that you listed on your FAFSA application so they can begin their process of awarding aid and sending you an award letter. Something very important to note is that your FAFSA submission summary is only going to show you the federal money that you may be eligible for. Washington State has one of the top state financial aid packages in the nation. That means the FAFSA submission summary won't show you the Washington College Grant, the College Bound Scholarship, and other aid that your college may offer you. You won't see any of this information until you receive your award letter directly from your prospective colleges. If you're interested in learning more about the award letter, watch our next videos in this series, titled After You Submit Your Application. Some final last reminders. Don't forget that every year you go to college, you submit a FAFSA application for that school year. Also, stay on the lookout for any additional emails from Federal Student Aid or from the colleges that you listed on your application so that you don't miss any updates or next steps. And if you need any help, just talk with a trusted adult. We're all here to help. Thank you for hanging out with me today to learn more about the FAFSA. Good luck, you've got this, and we'll talk again soon. See you next time.